Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, so did I. Everything looks good. We are live.
Someone sent me an email. They're like, come work for us. And I Googled them, and it's email and SMS marketing automation. No, you're a spammer. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, I got nobody bit, actually.
Your company is a spam company. Go fuck yourself. I just tell them that. Like, I looked you up. You send spam. I will never. Why would the hell would I work for you?
I have a little 4-sentence copy pasta that I paste into any recruiter who's an NFT guy.
I stopped getting those.
I don't block them. I post that first, and I make sure they read it, and then I block them. All right. So I got nobody bit related to NFTs, actually.
Uh-oh.
In a good way. It's also related to PAX.
Mm-hmm. There were NFTs at PAX?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
It's not what you think. It's Thursday, April 28th, 2022. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about handwriting and penmanship. The only classes I ever got D's in my entire pre-college life. So, as you all know, Emily and I were at PAX East 2022 for, all told, about 4 hours on Thursday, because we're really sticking around due to COVID and everything. And
there were some people getting COVID. I saw another PAX person today post a photo of a positive rapid test.
So I'm going to be real. I'm going to be
lines on it.
Ooh, the solid line, because mine was like a barely visible line. Like you could almost not.
Solid lines. And it's like, that is a person who, is a person that when I go to PAX, I spend time near that person.
Yep.
At PAX East. And
yep.
I probably would have gotten sick from them if I had done a normal PAX East. It is good chance I would have gotten sick from that person.
Yep. And I'm going to be just very direct about this. Had I not and Emily not already gotten COVID because of my job like a month ago, I would have canceled.
How much that really,
No, I mean, say like if I hadn't already gotten it, I would have canceled because the numbers seemed too high, and I feel like I would have been correct in that decision.
The number is going up. I don't like it.
But this, according to my doctor and the CDC, the like extra immunity that we have because we got this Omicron variant, it lasts at most 3 months, and then we could get it again. So back to full lockdown soon for us.
I don't even know if I don't even know if you really get, how immune are you, right? It's like,
well, it's like, I mean, think about that when you get like a flu or anything else, you don't get it again from like yourself and your own like contaminated house right away. But then if you go out in the street, 6 months later, you could get that exact same flu.
Sure, but it could also, it's like, this COVID keeps mega T.
Oh yeah, there could be a $9.95 to you that just hasn't arisen yet.
There was a time in my life where I think I had a cold, and then then I got a different cold immediately.
Oh, when I was a kid, there was a situation where I got a bad cold and a serious flu simultaneously, and I had to be hospitalized. Somehow that Dana Carvey special. Anyway, so at PAX, we did the Atari game design panel, but I had Emily be player too. And it went real well. We got a ton of positive feedback because almost no Geek Nights listeners, people who had never heard of us before, fill in this room. And I made a very brief joke. I something was worth, like the value of this thing becomes 0. And then I paused and I did the kind of rim joke, just like an NFT. And in the crowd, I noticed something very specific. Most of the crowd laughed like out loud. They were like, fuck NFTs. But I very specifically saw a handful of people who visibly frowned and furrowed their brows.
Yeah, of course. That's
100% of the people who appeared to not be happy about that were white men who appeared to be between the age of 25 and 35.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
That's not a surprise.
But I was very heartened by the fact that the vast majority of the room kind of had a moment of, fuck NFTs. Also, no one knows about Pitfall 2. Like, nobody knows that game exists.
I didn't know until recently the fullness of Pitfall.
There's a reason when we did that panel, I was like, Scott, oh my, you got to see this shit. And then I started it. I was shocked when I found that ROM. I didn't know it existed.
I mean,
So in the
I
news.
knew about all kinds of other pitfalls.
So the bad ones in particular. My favorite awful game done quick ever is still Super Pitfall. That is the funniest shit.
Anyway.
So anyway, in the news, I got two very related newses because the FAA is going after two different sets of people for basically the same bullshit on different scales. And it's extra funny because of all the federal institutions in the United States, there's one that is very powerful and unlike the others, has not been heavily gutted by our terrible governments over the years. And that is the FAA.
Yeah, it's like the FAA. It's like that is, I mean, I'm sure they're airplane experts, aviation nerds, FAA insiders.
Oh yeah, it needs a lot more funding
to be like, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. The FAA has this problem and this problem, and
I'm not saying it doesn't have problems, but compare it to what we've done to the CDC or the FDA.
Yeah, it's like the if there are problems at the FAA, which I'm sure there are, they are not extremely visible to the common person.
Yep.
In the way that other dysfunction in other government agencies is. Also, when you read the news, it's like most public news, I guess if you're not reading aviation news, is like the FAA seems to get things done. When planes crash, it's usually not because of regulatory failure. It's because of, people being bad.
Yep.
Right? It's like
planes are extremely safe if you follow the rules.
Right. And it's like they appear to the general public to be doing about as good a job as a government regulatory body can be doing. Right.
But I saw a tweet because I didn't know a lot. I didn't think a lot about this, but I was doing a little bit of research around these stories, and I found a tweet from what's clearly some aviation nerd guy, and it was roughly a meme, but the format was, FBI coming after you? I'll live. FAA's on you, leaving the country right now.
Well, I mean, the FAA, they can make you stop flying, I guess.
Yeah, which is a pretty big deal. So story number one.
If you're a pilot, you're losing your livelihood.
So story number one, some stunt people wanted to do what is honestly a fucking awesome stunt. They were going to fly two planes, and they did the stunt.
What kind of planes?
Like prop planes, like a Cessna-looking thing. They're going to fly two planes. They're going to simultaneously jump out of each of their respective planes and parachute
in the other plane.
Parachute a distance into the other planes. Like it's a big stunt they're going to do. There's a whole bunch of nonsense.
Are there going to be second backup people flying the planes
while
they're parachuting?
So
or are those planes just going to be empty?
So this is why the FAA is going after them. They did all their tests of this stunt with backup pilots in the planes, obviously. Like, it would be stupid not to. And the FAA was like, you know what? You can do this stunt. The way you've tested it, totally fine. And at the last minute, they're like, yeah, so we're not going to have the backup pilots because it doesn't look good on TV. It's not as scary to everybody. And the FAA, immediately, their response was, by all means, no. Their response was, what the fuck? Absolutely not. Under no circumstances are you to do this.
Yes, you cannot have a plane flying in the air with nobody in it, just like you can't have a car driving down the road with nobody in it, or a train with no engineer there, right? It's even if you have an amazing autopilot system, which, like, when you fly a commercial flight, the autopilot is, from what I've learned, it's like it's controlling it most of the way.
I mean, remember the famous Kennedy, the ghost flight, where everyone on the plane died, and the plane just kept flying until it ran out of fuel.
Yeah. But it's like, you got to have a person sitting there, right?
Yep.
It's because it's not just, if it was only your own life being put at risk.
Like if it's a stunt car in a test track, all right, it runs into the wall of the test track. Like, okay.
Right. And it's like, or the stunt driver who signed up to take this risk is the person who is taking all the risk and everyone else is safe. But if you have a plane flying in the air, and there's no one in it and it crashes, you just killed or severely injured or damaged some innocent people or property or, right? That had nothing to do with it. And that's a no-no.
Yep. So, of course,
Put
the stunt...
yourself at risk all you want, just not anyone else.
So, of course, the stunt went wrong. And because they did it anyway. They ignored the FAA. They did it. And one of the planes crashed. The guy didn't make it into the plane. It flew off in a random direction.
They did it with the no pilots in the plane?
Yep. It flew off in a random direction and crashed. And now the FAA is like, well, so as of Dateline now, quote, the FAA has not yet said what kind of punishment those involved will face.
Severe. Imagine. Severe.
So,
what did the plane crash into?
Luckily, the middle of the desert.
Okay. Oh, desert? Okay, good.
So it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Not a rare old cactus.
Oh my God. I'm glad you know about the rare old cactuses. That's a topic that I'm specifically mad about.
Yeah, you should be mad about
those
it.
cactuses take like 400 years to grow, and some dipshit with a pickup truck shoots at it and then steals it.
Yep.
Anyway, that is so much less egregious than this other FAA news that also just happened. So, some YouTuber guy who I'd never heard of had a live stream and a video where he had the harrowing tale. The YouTube video was titled, "I Crashed My Plane." And it shows he's doing some flight. He's like a flying guy, YouTube channel, whatever. And like some
pilot's license.
Yep, he's doing everything legit, but something goes wrong. The engine's out. I'm over the mountains. Oh no, my engine's out. And like he panics, he does a bunch of stuff, and then he's like, guys, I gotta bail. And he bails out of the plane and parachutes down and survives.
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah.
Yep. So spoilers. He did this on purpose. He faked the engine trouble. He crashed the plane on purpose. This was a stunt for his YouTube channel. And the FAA...
.jpg.
Yep. I'm going to read a quote. Before the FAA made its determination, obviously the FAA is fucking this guy over, and deservedly so, members of the aviation community were doubtful Jacob's video was genuine, saying it was unusual that Jacob had brought a parachute with him on a routine flight and that he didn't try to land the plane. Parachutes are typically only used by aerobatic pilots or those doing flight tests. So, yeah, not only did he crash his own plane on purpose as a stunt, but he did the most obvious crime, like, I'm wearing a parachute for no reason. Let me just get into my plane. Oh no, the engine is broken. Let me ignore all procedures and jump out of it. And I happen to be live streaming the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, like, what do I know about flying? Not much. But even that not much includes if the engine goes out, try to glide and make an emergency landing somewhere.
Yep. Honestly, for that kind of plane, because I have... logged to my name 6 hours of flight training total when I was in high school. But one of the things I learned in the Starbase program, and part of that thing was like the procedures. Like we learned a lot of air procedures. And for a plane like that, the first thing you do if the engine goes out is try to restart it again. Yeah, try to restart it. Most of the time, it'll just start back up.
Yeah.
So, the sort of buried lead in the story, because fuck this YouTuber guy. This is why we all hate these YouTube personalities and this whole like system.
Yep.
But is that if you are gonna fake something in the modern era, even if you fake it really well, like you make deep fakes or do any like sort of nonsense, the metadata coupled with nerds who know a lot about this and are spending most of their time trolling around the internet looking for people to argue with are going to figure your shit out before the organizations even think about you.
Yep.
It is also, so easy for a nerd.
One of those other F organizations, right? It's like...
hire those nerds.
They might not, there might be more dysfunctional, but if it's the FAA... they're going to get you. Right? The FCC, it's like you could probably run a pirate radio and get away with it for a while, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's some pirate radio I can pick up in this neighborhood.
A plane without a license, like good luck. Like, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they just shot you down. Right?
What's extra funny is this is randomly very close to the plot of a particular episode of Bob's Burgers that we happened to watch like a couple weeks.
That show exists. I've never seen any episode of it.
So randomly, we started watching some episodes of it.
Which streaming service is it on?
It's on Hulu, which we have a free account on.
I don't have a subscription to any of them.
All I'm gonna say is this show,
Canceled everything.
like after the first couple seasons, it is not on the tier of Platinum Age Simpsons, but it is on the tier of the late, like upper silver, low gold age of The Simpsons. Like seasons,
I've heard people say that they enjoy it.
like seasons 8, 9, 10.
From it, but I'm probably not
But
gonna watch it.
we watched this episode where a pilot fakes engine trouble to try to get a woman to be impressed with him and sleep with him. And yeah, YouTubers. Bob's Burgers had your number. The Simpsons didn't even do that plot yet, as far as I know.
All right. Well, we got one more news, which is that, of course, next week begins the Stanley Cup Playoffs, which
oh my God.
happens every year. But we don't usually talk about it very much.
Well, why haven't we talked about the Stanley Cup a lot in a while? Like, what could have been going on in New York over the last several years where we were not super vocal about the Stanley Cup?
Well, there was a pandemic, right? That was one problem.
Yep.
And problem two is even before then, our team was not in the playoffs. Right?
We were. If you don't watch hockey, the New York Rangers were in a process that is affectionately called rebuild, which basically means our team sucks. We're gonna get all new players and start over.
Oh, yeah, I guess this is like a well-known thing, but maybe not for the listener. But yeah, a few years ago, right? So the Rangers were in the Stanley Cup Finals in like 2014-15, right?
Yep.
Which is probably the last time we talked a lot about it.
And they did pretty well, but they weren't cup ready. They were not cup team.
Right. It's like they made it to the finals, but they weren't as good as the Kings, and that's what happened, right? But it was pretty close even. Right?
Yeah.
You know, it was like a lot of overtimes anyway. So anyway, then they went downhill. It's like they weren't as good. They weren't making the playoffs for several years, they're getting worse, right? And then not making the playoffs. So they sent a letter, right, to the fans like, look, what it said in effect, what you can read the actual words online, was like, look, we're not doing great. We're going to have to tear it down and suck for a while and then get better, right? And so that's exactly what they did. And now, just a few years later, we finally made it back to the playoffs. So, that's a thing. That's great. We're finally gonna, it's been so long, 84 years since we got to go to a playoff game, which is, if you haven't been, is completely different from regular season game.
It's different in so many ways. Like you could do a game design podcast just about playoff hockey versus regular hockey.
Right. Well, the way I think I could describe it is like, okay, you have your house that you live in, right? And when you come home from wherever you work, your school, wherever you go to, if you go anywhere, but wake up, I don't know, your house has a certain atmosphere to it, right? It's right on most days, it's pretty similar because it's the same people there doing the same things, right? If you were to come home one day from work and there was like a massive barbecue party at your house, right? It's still the same house you always come home to, and your family is still there even, but the atmosphere is completely different. It's like a different place, even though it's the same place, right?
There's this like electric energy. Like you walk into your arena, it doesn't matter what arena, even if you are like the shittiest, newest team, like a brand new arena, you walk into that arena and there's just an energy in the air.
Right. So I learned some information because since the times, I think when we started having enough money to buy hockey tickets, right, which are ludicrously expensive in New York, as you would expect, right? If we lived in some other place, like, I don't know, like in St. Louis, we could probably afford Blues season tickets, like several, right? I don't know what they charge, but it's got to be less than New York. I think Toronto and Montreal are the only other really expensive ones. But anyway, since we were able to, the very first time that we bought them, right, we only were buying a quarter season. And that season, I think, was the last time we were in the playoffs. And I would manage to get 2 tickets to like one playoff game. And that was it. And we didn't get very far. So since then, we haven't been in. We've just been going to regular season games. This year was the first year where we have tickets. We have a half season now because Rim got a lot more money.
Yep.
we got right, and we're in the playoffs. So, and they don't really publish the information online about like how playoff tickets work, right? So I thought it'd be pretty interesting for everyone to get an inside of, if you had a pile of money, what it would look like. So you buy the season tickets, right? You can buy full, half, or quarter. If you buy quarter, it's not really like they don't really consider you like a season ticket member. They just consider you like someone who bought a bunch of tickets.
It's like buying a 10 trip on the Metro North train instead of buying a monthly pass.
Right. If you buy a half or a full, and an NHL season has 82 games, so it's 41 home games plus a few preseason games, and they make you buy preseason games, right?
Yeah.
Deal with it, right? They're taking your money.
That's the third kind of energy in the arena.
Yeah, exactly. It's empty. Yeah.
It's empty and sad, and it's full of tourists and people who are given free tickets by their season ticket holder friends.
Yep, exactly. And there isn't even like a t-shirt gun or anything. No blue crew, no nothing. All right. So anyway, so you buy either a full or a half season, right? And then your team makes the playoffs. Okay, so at least I don't know how other teams are doing it, but the way Madison Square Garden does it is first, they probably go to the big sponsors and the big money people, right? And they say, all right, these tickets are for you. You got a luxury box. Obviously, there's no question. You just have all the tickets for your luxury box.
Yeah.
If you don't realize this is true for pretty much every sporting arena. Let's say you buy a luxury box because you're mega rich, right? And the luxury box has, 8 seats in front of it.
You can't just bring 8 friends to every game. It's not just like a little apartment.
You don't just magically get 8 free tickets to every single event in Madison Square Garden. You just have the right to purchase 8 tickets to any event at Madison Square
You're
Garden.
buying the box, not the seats.
Right. Nobody else can buy them from you. It's like they can never sell out to someone else because they're only on sale to you. But it's like, you have to buy them if you want to go to a concert. Okay, there's 8 tickets with your name on them at all times, but they're not free. So you got to buy them. Right? So those people don't have to worry. So then the season ticket holders, the full season people, they get access to buy basically playoff tickets for their seats, right? Do you want your seats for every home playoff game? Yes or no? If you say yes, you have 2 choices, right? Full or pay by round. Full means you buy the tickets to every conceivable could happen home postseason game, whether they're going to happen or not. You give them the full amount of money as if you're playing 20, what's the maximum number? 16. 16 is the most possible games it could be, right? If you had home ice advantage and you took it to 7 games each round.
Yeah, because a lot of games don't necessarily happen.
Right. And then they refund you for games that don't happen. If you do pay by round, then it's sort of the same thing. It's just you pay 1 round at a time, and when the team wins and makes it to the next round, they charge you again. And if games don't happen because the round ends early, like in a sweep, then they give you a refund of the games that didn't happen. So because we have a half season, it was basically that, except we only got half the games, right?
Yep. Which sucks because I have a life and a job, so a full season is like not feasible in my life. That's too much hockey even for me. But
who's gonna go to 41 games?
You know who would?
Right?
Us, if we didn't have jobs and we're idly rich.
If I'm really old and I can afford it, then maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we got to buy our seats, those seats we always sit in, for half of the conceivable home games. And then they were like, all right, if you really want to go to the other half of the games, right, we'll let you buy that now too. And there were slim pickings for that. And then they did a pre-sale for people who had Chase credit cards, sponsorship deal. Then they did an internet pre-sale, which they sent out a code, right, to use. And then they did a general public sale. And it's like they were rolling these out in so many layers. It was like, but it's like they make, depending on how well the team does, it's like, they're making huge amounts of money. Just, it's like when they get to the postseason, you don't have to pay the players anymore. You already paid them. You only pay them for the regular season, right? Some of them might have bonuses or something for postseason.
Well, even worse, the price of the tickets, the seats, the further deeper your team gets into the playoffs, the prices rise exorbitantly.
Yeah, exactly. So the regular season tickets we have are $120 per seat per game, right?
Yep.
The first round of the playoffs is a little bit more than that, right? If we're in the Stanley Cup Finals, the 4th round, the tickets are basically like $500 a game, which is obviously ridiculous. But if you were trying to buy those like on the open market, it would be easily $1,000 plus per game.
Easily.
So it's like, of course, even if I didn't have Rim to put up money, I still would have just bought all those tickets knowing that I could guaranteed make my money. Like I could just make my money back by selling them no matter what.
Yeah, because demand, it's just the same reason why conventions sell out. There's only so many seats you can physically put in a hockey arena.
Square Garden, despite being, it doesn't actually have as many seats as you imagine. It's not like a football stadium. There's like 20 to 30, there's not a lot of seats.
Yep, because football, you can sit so far away you can't see anything. It doesn't actually matter that much for most football fans. The capacity
of Madison Square Garden is like 20,000. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, even if you don't care, because that is not information that they don't publish like the full details of this stuff, like just publicly on their websites, and I feel like, that's something like, even someone who's not interested in purchasing, but especially someone who is interested in purchasing, it's like all that should be public information, like exactly how the fuck that works, right? Because you can get into it and not know what's gonna happen, right? They just spring it on you. They're like, "Hey, tickets! This is the deal right now. Take it or leave it." It's like, whoa!
I mean,
why didn't you tell me how this worked like months ago, right?
Yeah, because while PAX, for example, does spring on, "Hey, today's the day. Go, go, go." They explain the process in excruciating detail long in advance of the sudden day.
I think actually PAX could do a better job of explaining in detail.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be Rangers-Penguins in the first round, and then Rangers...
As of today, but it could be Rangers-Caps still as a possibility.
But Rangers-Carolina in the next round.
Well, that would be bad.
That's what it's looking like.
Our hope is that it's Carolina and Boston beat the shit out of each other in the first round.
Yep. I don't think there's any chance Carolina loses, but they could get injured enough.
Well, yeah, but it's like, Boston's not easy for us.
Of course, here's the danger. A Boston Bruins that somehow beats Carolina is going to be dangerous as shit.
Yeah, but it's like if we can get to the second round, I think the only way we get out of the second round is if the team we face in the second round is, beat up real bad.
Sweep the Penguins, take a break. We'll hope it goes to Game 7, 10 overtimes.
Yeah, that's our only way to the third round, I think, is that path. So.
All right. Put a marker in.
What time did we say we're gonna go there?
Chase said he'd be there between 6:30 and 7, so we got time. We don't have to go super long on this. I'll go quick on the things of the day too. But anyway, things of the day. I got a real little thing. This is a video of some film footage that was heavily restored just to make it look more real, to avoid the phenomenon where old black and white things feel old-timey to people and they lose sight of like the world was real back then and there were people like it's easy to lose that context looking at black and white photos in the modern era or old grainy footage, but it's just footage of San Francisco, Market Street, end to end on the front of a trolley from 1906. I'm pretty sure that's before the big earthquake. Oh shit, it's 4 days before the earthquake that destroyed all of this. So that's neat. It's like seeing Pompeii before it got destroyed. But two, I share this video for one specific reason. If you watch this footage, this is an era when cars barely worked. Like cars went about as fast as Scott and I ride our bikes.
Yeah, Model Ts, which were also death traps, right?
Yep. These are like cars that are not significantly faster than a horse-drawn carriage. And yet...
we're loud.
And yet... Even that back then, when so few people had cars and cars were so slow, this footage, it is abundantly clear that cars are a ridiculous menace to society. The few cars that people have are driving all over the road, cutting people off, almost hitting pedestrians. They cut off the trolley taking this footage 2 times in the first 10 seconds.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, if you look at old news from around the time cars started becoming a thing, get an old newspaper at the library. There's plenty of like op-eds and articles of like, cars terrorizing the streets, et cetera, get these cars under control. And, the decision to, instead of ban the cars, but instead to remove everything else and give, the car to the road, give the road to the car, destroyed the earth.
Oh, so I saw something interesting.
It was the direct cause of most of the problems in our society.
There are obviously nuances to what this group is doing, and I'm just going to say that they're doing it and leave it at that. But there is a climate activist group in Britain. I saw some news today. They are going to gas stations along major highways in Britain and breaking all the gas pumps and putting up anti-car slogans and leaving. That's happening.
I think that's I don't know how. I think that might be better than the SUV tire slashing people.
Yeah, I
have to think about it.
All I'll say is that if climate change,
as satisfying as it is, the tire slashing is not.
It hurts the wrong people.
Yeah,
is one problem. But
yeah, there's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, but we can also point out that climate change, if unaddressed, is a literally existential crisis to all of human society as we know it. There is a point at which increasingly drastic action is necessary.
Yeah, now. The time for that actually has passed.
1906, we could have nipped this in the bud and banned these fucking cars from San Francisco. Anyway.
You look at the science, right? The time for drastic action is already here, right?
Yep.
It's been here for a while, and we still haven't taken the drastic action. So,
I mean, Al Gore was elected president, and we could have started addressing it, and then Supreme Court and shenanigans. Anyway.
We're sort of in this zone, right? It's like, imagine you have a speeding train, right? You pull the brakes, like the emergency brake. It's still, the train is going to stop, what, 100 feet, 1,000 feet, right? It's like, the train is maybe 500 feet away. It hasn't hit us yet, but if we pull the emergency brake now, it's still going to hit us. It's like there is no, like, we are going to get hit by the train. It's like, would it be better, even if the train is 2 feet away, pulling the emergency brake is still a good idea. It'll hit us slightly less hard, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like the train can't go in reverse. It's going to hit us. And every second we don't take the drastic action of pull the emergency brake increases the strength at which the train will hit us, right? So don't go saying, oh, it's too late to do anything and be all defeatist.
Ooh, there's a video.
It is too late to do anything.
There's a really good video I'll post in the forum just because I think it's worthwhile noting. It's a video that gets deep into sort of the strategy of we shouldn't do anything about climate change people. And they've moved on. They were previously in the 70s, 80s. They were focused on like denying that it was happening. Then they moved when the science was irrefutable to focusing on, well, it's happening, but humans aren't causing it. And they kept moving to a different position to defend themselves.
Yeah, of course. That's how all these, people who are defending not facts.
Where they have moved,
which issue it is.
Where they have moved now, increasingly, like over the last 1 or 2 years, is to the most dangerous possible territory of it's happening, we're causing it, but it's too late to do anything. Everything's fucked forever, so don't bother. It'll make your life worse for nothing. And that is not true, but that is the current line that's starting to be spread by these conservatives.
The truth of the truth there is, the sad one.
Oh, we can't stop many of the effects. They are already too late. But not all the effects.
But there's a truth there that is sad. Right. It's a sad, evil true is that for a lot of those people saying that, it's like they will actually just be dead. They're very likely to just die of something else before it's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The people who are causing this are primarily people who will die before it affects them.
Right. It's like, yeah, the train is 500 feet away and you can pull the emergency brake to take less damage from it. But if that person already knows that they're going to die from cancer or something before that happens, right? So they're just a selfish fucking evil asshole who doesn't care about other human beings who will still be alive.
Yep.
And therefore, they should have no say. Let's not have a discussion about giving younger people greater say in government. The end. Let's go.
Yep. All right. What do you got?
What?
See what happens when we skip a show? We got way too much bottled up.
Yeah. So anyway, thing of the day. So we're going to do our main bit on handwriting penmanship. But nowadays, when everyone types everything, right? Typography is the art of choice for everybody, right? So Star Wars, right? I've always noticed that, Star Wars starts off with typography, that crawl, right? Everyone knows the crawl.
Yeah.
Right? Text going by. And, I wasn't sure. Like, am I just imagining it? No, they definitely changed the fonts in the different editions and releases and movies. It wasn't all, it's like my brain had that original font in there, right? And then when I saw other Star Wars movies, I was like, I think they changed that font. Sure enough, they did. And you can learn all about that and more from this Twitter account, Star Wars Fonts. This person examines and identifies fonts, not just in Star Wars movies, but in like random Star Wars merch, games, books, fucking any Star Wars thing that has typography on it. They're looking at the fonts. It's pretty fascinating. And this is while Twitter is in the news, this is an example of one of those things that pretty much only exists on Twitter. It wouldn't work on a Mastodon. It wouldn't work. I guess it could work as a website with RSS, but the person who's making it isn't making a website with RSS. So unless you can convince them to do so, it's like, this kind of content is like, Twitter is the only choice. This is going to be on Facebook. It's not going to be on Instagram. Like, it's the only service that will have this kind of thing. So that's why it's a shame that Twitter is in trouble.
In the meta moment, the Geek Nights Book Club book is 9 Fox Gambit. Not 8, but 9.
The listener's most requested book club book. All right, listener, you're going to have your way. We're going to do this sci-fi book. I've read it already. I read it a while ago. Has Rim started reading it?
I started it, and all I got to say so far is...
Formations?
It doesn't waste any time. It does not waste any time. It is dense. It is like a brick wall is just right there that you slam into. Paragraph 1. I love it. It's the same feeling I got reading that. Actually, it feels denser in terms of like what is on a given page than even that first Prince of Nothing book we read. That's what I'm going to say so far. We'll talk about it more after I get more than like one chapter in.
Sure. All right. But yeah, that's the thing. And what meta conventions? None conventions. No, nothing. It's summer. Maybe because it's summer, I am working on the website. I developed a really good search for the website. Yep.
And we got a pretty good pipeline around making content in outdoor places that are not our apartments.
Yeah, once it's warm outside, it'll be safe to get together outside and make some content. So that might or might not happen. No promises.
Yep. And otherwise, let's move right into it because I'm going to go see some people outside in the cold later. So, handwriting and penmanship. There's a lot to cover here. We're going to mostly focus on our own thoughts and experiences, but frankly, we are millennials, kind of older millennials, so we grew up in an era where, at least when I was in elementary school, I was taught Danielian, like a method of learning how to write in proto-cursive, with the expectation that when I got into middle and high school, I was taught formal cursive. And I was told by teachers all the way up through like 10th grade, yeah, when you're an adult, you'll have to like write in cursive. Like cursive, you have to have good cursive to have a job. This is a part of your life. And then around 10th grade, my teachers were like, cursive? The fuck? Print everything. If you write in cursive, I will not read your papers.
Well, my story is similar, right? In that they were teaching us handwriting in elementary school, and they were telling us, right, that like as you get older, right, you're going to have to write in cursive, and, you're going to use paper with, smaller line rules, and you're going to have to write long papers, and you're going to have to, they were basically like scaring us about like the future, right, whatever. But yeah, and then I guess around 5th grade was the first time that I submitted a paper, and I typed it.
It was 5th grade for me too. I remember specifically.
I typed it on a school computer and printed it out of the Apple dot matrix printer.
Yep, same. And the funniest, I just have a specific memory of I wrote this essay on the computer. It was about the book My Side of the Mountain, if I recall correctly. And
mine was about Galileo.
In fact, I have my mom has a copy of this essay still. I saw it the last time I visited her.
For that Galileo paper, I used a CD-ROM encyclopedia to read about Galileo.
Ooh.
I did it all on the computer.
I brought the essay home after it got graded, so it had an A on it, and I showed it to my grandpa, who at the time, his career was still manually laying out metal type at the Macomb Daily, the newspaper in the town we lived in.
I didn't have an offset printer yet in the 90s,
nope.
Right? 80s.
And, it was the town he lived in. It was like the town next to it because we lived in Detroit. And all he said, he looked at it and said, you just put my entire industry out of a job. You can just do this yourself? You're in what, 5th grade? That's amazing. No one should ever have to do what I did ever again. It killed all my friends because that type was made out of lead and a lot of people died.
Yep.
So yeah.
Way to go, Grandpa.
My grandpa was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
it's, at least, that's the right way to be a grandpa. You don't want to be the grandpa that's like, damn kids, you ruined me.
Yep.
Right?
He's like,
oh, thanks for ruining me.
yeah.
like sincere thanks, not sarcastic thanks.
Yep. I look for automation has to lead to leisure though, not to just even worse jobs.
Of course.
But that's a separate conversation.
My earliest handwriting memory was actually in 2nd grade, right? They gave us, I think, I don't remember that much, right? Because it's 2nd grade, right? But I do remember clearly they gave us one of those, like a workbook for handwriting, where like in each page was a letter, and you were supposed to write the letter repeatedly along the lines.
Oh my God, we had those. It was the Danielian workbook specifically.
I don't know about if it was Danielian or not, but regardless, it was like, write a bunch of A's, write a bunch of B's, etc. Right? So, and it was one of those books you could write in the book, and it smelled really fucking good because I love books. So, anyway, I get this book, they hand it to us, and I'm like, ooh, and I immediately write all the letters on all the pages, and I fill in the whole book, like in one shot, right? Like, bam, like really quick, right? Little did I realize. And then the teacher's like, all right, today we're going to do A. I'm already like done with the book, basically, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, uh-oh. And then like for 25 more days, I presume, I don't know how many more days, maybe the book had print and cursive, I don't remember, but, or lowercase, uppercase, it might've been a lot more days than I remember. Yeah. I just definitely remember sitting there quietly and awkwardly every day when everyone else was doing the handwriting book, and I had already filled in the Z's on the first day.
My kid memory, which is from 1st grade, was we were learning Danielian, which is the precursor to cursive and like that one formal methodology. But I remember noticing that our teacher wrote in a much more elegant style of precursive when she was writing her own things. Like some of her letters.
I definitely noticed that like my mom writing in cursive, right, was like way different than the cursive they taught us in school.
So particularly her numbers, because we learned numbers in cursive too. I remember just having this kid brain memory of that way to write the number 2 was way better than what was in our workbooks. So I wrote the way the teacher wrote it instead of the way the workbook wrote it. And at first I was given a bad grade. And I appealed this to the teacher saying, but that's how you write it. And in one of the only instances I can think of in my entire young childhood, a teacher actually listened to me, agreed.
Best teacher ever.
Changed the grade to an A, and was totally cool with it.
Best grade, best teacher.
That 2 looked way better than the 2 they were teaching us in the book.
Best grandpa and best teacher.
Right?
It's like, let's keep going with other cool handwriting people.
But I remember what was funny is they taught us this precursive method specifically, and they were very, very strict about forming the letters exactly perfectly.
Oh, wasn't this like Catholic school?
Oh yeah, it was a Catholic school. We were not.
Oh, that explains.
In fact, left-handed kids were. This was in the 80s, but left-handed kids were not allowed to use their left hand to write.
Yeah, everything makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, the cool teacher, one of the few teachers who was not a nun. She was just like some teacher they hired.
Yep.
The nuns were not cool about this stuff generally.
No.
Except Sister Joan. She was cool.
Mm.
But so we're learning this method, but it was very apparent that nobody writes that way. They either write in full cursive or they write in block print. And
yeah, my dad wrote in print, and I noticed that as a kid. Like my mom writes in cursive when she's only like writing notes to herself or whatever. She doesn't.
I guess I technically write in cursive when I'm writing notes to myself, but I defy any human to read them.
Anyway.
But what I just remember that they teach us this formal method. But as a kid, I always noticed that nobody writes that way anywhere on earth. And our school never actually taught us block printing, like actual block print, because their idea.
We did that first before we did.
We didn't learn. I learned block print in middle school when I moved to public school, and the public school people were like, basically. They increasingly were like, what is this Danielian that you're writing in? Just write it in block print. It's easier to read.
Mm.
And
after that, I guess after the 5th grade, pretty much from then on, right? It's like I might be writing some stuff, right? But like mostly I was typing anything that was, text. And
so our schools required us to write essays in class in middle school. So I wrote all my essays in cursive because.
Oh yeah, if I had to write an essay in class, I would write it in print. Yeah,
but
usually.
I hated that. So what I'd usually do is fuck around and not work on the essay in school, and then I just type the essay up at home and like bring it in the next day.
Oh, but sometimes you'd have a test with an essay question.
Oh yeah.
That's good. Right.
I just at that point I hated writing because it hurt my hand to write a lot of text.
You're doing it the wrong way if it hurts your hand, right?
Yep.
I do it the wrong way too. It hurts my hand also.
Yep. When I was a kid, I tended to write.
All the artists and the people with good handwriting, they move their arm. I was just moving my wrist around.
Wrist? I was just moving my fingers. I was writing tiny little letters.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that too.
What I
the
blame
correct way is to move your arm around, right?
The reason what I blame is I remember in elementary school, they didn't do this in middle school. They gave every kid this little rubber like thing. We had to put it.
I had those.
Yep, and we had to put. They wouldn't let us write unless it was on our pencils. And as soon as I got out of that Catholic school, I threw that thing away and never used it again. It was causing all my pain.
I mean, I tried them, but they just didn't work for me, right? It's like I'm holding the thing the correct way. I'm just moving my arm the wrong way. But yeah, it's like soon after, it's like the only time I was writing anything was because I had to for school, right? I wasn't writing anything on purpose until the internet came around, and then I was writing a lot on purpose, whether it was bullshit comments or blogs or whatever, but I was typing all those things.
Well, it was very noticeable, even to me as a 5th grader, that even with like formal cursive training and like I could write cursive really fast. Honestly, the reason I think it hurt my hand so much was that I tended to write like 4 or 5 times more in a given essay than like any other kid would. But that was just me being a weird kid. But even in 5th grade, having not yet even been taught typing, I could type faster than I could write. And that is what sealed all my opinions as a kid and why I wanted to type. I
talked about how I had the typing class with the old lady with the IBM computers, and then I became so good at typing, right? So
our typing class in middle school.
I usually win typing speed competitions against everybody.
We were pretty close when we just did that little quick typing thing in the Discord a while ago. We were within spitting distance of each other.
But even my typing isn't perfect. I never use the right shift key. Ever.
I don't know why. The right shift key is like the secret hack.
Mine probably has like 2 presses ever.
Right shift is so good.
I just pressed it, so that's probably like the 3rd press, maybe.
Yeah. The only thing I do that's not super legit is I tend to move my index fingers off of the official home row keys, the 2 with the little divots on them, F and J. I tend to, if I'm typing a lot, drift one to the right and hang out there. Like I'm on G and K with my index fingers. But what's funny is I type the same either way because I don't even picture the fact that a keyboard exists. I think words, my hands just pump them out. The same way I see arrows, my feet just move on the DDR mat.
Exactly. Same thing with Vim, right? It's like, I don't think about JKL semicolon, like the letter that just move the thing around without thinking, right?
So the last time I wrote a significant amount of text with a pen or pencil that wasn't just notes I was taking for myself, I remember the exact day. It was my first day at RIT, and they made me take one of those blue book tests for some bullshit English class.
Oh, I did one of those. Yeah.
And the test was to decide if you had to take the basically high school English class or if you had to take the remedial English class. And the test was like a really simple essay question.
I took that one.
Yep. Every student had to take it. That was absolutely the last time I wrote more, like a page or more by hand in my entire life.
I mean, the thing is, despite, typing everything, right? I actually always I have 2 notebooks, like paper notebooks on my desk.
I take notes faster with a pen and paper than I do with a laptop, hands down.
One of them is for work notes and one of them is for not work notes.
I got a Moleskine I carry around work all the time. I just page by page, all my notes are in there.
It's like sometimes, I could be writing down, like whatever in there, right? Just absolutely anything I need to write down for any amount of time. It's not organized. It's just like a space to put whatever.
Yep.
Because no matter how good anyone makes all kinds of different little apps or post-it notes on the desktop, or just open up more Vim windows, or Emacs org mode, or any of these things that people have, right? The Obsidian note that I talked about, that's like I talked about that.
That might be the closest.
Well, that's good for notes that you want to like keep organized and filed and recall later.
Ah, true. I will take my handwritten notes and type up summaries of them into other things later.
Right. We're talking like, write down an IP address, like see an IP address that you can't copy and paste or so easily, write it down, and then, a minute later, type it back in again or stuff like that. Right. Anyway. So that, that's the kind of handwriting I've been doing, other than like a few maybe postcards here and there, right, for a very long time. And my handwriting wasn't good to begin with because I did the handwriting book in 2 seconds.
Yep. My handwring's weird. I
typed everything since 5th grade.
My handwriting was extremely good up through 4th grade because of Catholic school. I'd get hit. But as soon as I could type, my handwriting got so bad that I kept failing handwriting classes in middle school because I never wrote anything anymore.
Well, I didn't have handwriting class,
it was part of English class. Like it was an aspect of it, and we got a grade in it.
After the 2nd grade handwriting book, there was no more handwriting instruction.
Oh, wow. It all through elementary school, handwriting, it was called penmanship, was a line item on our report cards.
Right. So another topic, right, is calligraphy. So I didn't know calligraphy was a thing until like my mom was trying to do it for like maybe 10 minutes. She bought some calligraphy pens and some books, and she was trying to do it, and then I was like, oh, that looks fun. Look at because I like pens. We already did a show on pens, but like it was cool that the pens were slanty, right? And it was fun to try to use them. But I feel like calligraphy is now just for like people who do handwritten wedding invitations and shit like that.
Yep, I treat it like an art form, but not a practical method of writing a long form text.
Yeah, it's like because sometimes you want to create some text and there's no computer font. I'm sure there might be some fancy system you could use to get the to make it look right. Just draw in Photoshop with a Wacom or something like that. But you still need to have the art of your arm doing the calligraphy, right, to make fancy texts.
Motherfucker. So I have a random notepad just of like notes I was taking for work stuff, and I'm just looking at it from a penmanship eye, and I noticed something. I have 2 kinds of writing that I do. If there's a sentence or like a note, like oh, we got to deprecate that service, I write it in cursive, but it's more like shorthand. Like it's so barely formed and scribbly that I think only I could read it. But my printing, when I'm like making lists of things, I always do block printing, and I just noticed that about half my letters still have the fucking Danelian like tails hanging off the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, damn it.
So this whole thing came up because I read this blog post about penmanship. You can read it yourself if you care, right? It's not that great a blog post, right? But the 2 things I took away from the blog post were, one, right, is that penmanship is like a form of communication, right? It's like if you're doing notes for yourself, you're still communicating with your future self, but especially if it's for someone else to read, right? It's like, how frustrating is it to talk to someone who like can't like form proper sentences,
right?
Or someone, even if they're typing online, you can see the letters, but you can't quite get the meaning of what they're saying.
Oh, Scott, I worked at DeBella's, and I'd get
is poor.
At DeBella's, I'd get the order sheets where someone had phoned in a big order that someone else took the notes down. I could never read anything anyone else fucking wrote on those sheets.
Grubhub now, where you can't get it wrong, right?
Yep.
Because they check boxes instead of typing words. But yeah, if it's a phone order, it's like, you have a hard time. So if you write something for someone else, another audience to read, and it's not, legible, it's like you're failing at communication. There's that aspect, which is like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a thing, right? There's a second aspect, which is that it's like an art. You think about like, comic books have like letterers, right? Like, there's this huge crossover between like the worlds of like, art, comics, and like architectural drafting, right? Like a lot of people do more than one of the above, right? And it's like in lettering by hand as opposed to typography, which is about printing, right? Are like these completely different arts, even though they both involve setting text on a piece of paper, right? And so there's like that whole art to it. You think about fonts, right, on your computer, like choose the right one. But when it comes to your hand, it's like you have infinity fonts in your hand, right? Good luck, right? Serifs don't exist really with handwriting, right? It's not, I mean, I guess you could if you were really going to draw all those little serifs on there, right? You really want to. But he talked about in the blog post how there's this, basically there's this book that architects have, which is like sort of like the architect design textbook. I imagine if you go to architecture school, you probably buy this thing when you start and you keep it forever. Sort of like that one animator book, or there's a few computer science books like the SICP one maybe, right? There's a few of them. And it's already in its like 6th edition, right? In that book, there is basically a whole section that teaches you to write in this particular font. And it's like, holy shit, like me not knowing anything about architects, but it's like, as soon as I saw the font, I was like, every architect writes in that font. Every blueprint you've ever seen, they're handwriting in that font, right? Architects obviously can all fucking draw because that's their job, right? Even if they use CAD these days, they can almost all of them can draw on paper really well, right? And they're all writing in that same way for a large number of reasons. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool, and it's really stylish. And like, if you wrote that way, it would be pretty cool, even if you weren't an architect.
Yep.
So I ordered an old, busted up used copy of that book for like $4.
I'm vaguely interested too, because being
I
able to
read that section and see what it has to say. I don't care about the rest of it, the architect part. Yeah.
But in general, like a very important skill, even in the computer era, is to be able to, if necessary, write probably in print. Like just let cursive die unless you're doing it as an art.
The architect font is a print font, right? It's not.
But being able to write in block print legibly, if and when you need to, in a way that other people can read, very useful in case like something happens, the internet stops working, technology fails us. Like it's a skill that is very human and very important.
I think the time in my life, practically speaking, in my current life, the time that it matters the most would be if I go back to the office, right? When I work with other people in person, very often when I'm explaining something to someone, either on a whiteboard or even at my desk, right? I will be like, drawing and writing, like a live presentation. Like I don't have slides prepared, right? But I'm about to explain something.
No, I do
someone.
that. I've learned I rarely write any words or letters on them. I just use shapes because my handwriting is so bad.
I mostly use shapes, but sometimes I'll have to use words, right? Like I'll draw like a cylinder and I'll write like database, but it's like, people can't read it. So it's like, that is the area in which, if I'm in person explaining things to people, probably at work, but possibly also other settings, and I really like to use, drawing. I thought about actually making YouTube videos where I would hook up my iPad, which I can draw on with the magic pencil, right? And sort of put the magic iPad and my face on the screen at the same time as a way to like, treat it like a whiteboard. And like,
ooh, not bad. Sadly, the best tool I've used for that digitally, because I have the Wacom, is Mischief, but it's discontinued. Like the company's gone. I still have the software, but
I could just have my record the video from the iPad, record the video from my face in OBS, and whatever. Capture card from the iPad, webcam from the computer, right? All set. Or actual camera, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy. But it's like, my handwriting is way too awful for that to actually be any good. You watch like some YouTube channels with like what's the math one? Number file, right?
Okay, I was about to say there's a bunch, but yeah, they have like the Sharpie on the brown paper, and they're just like drawing these beautiful.
The giant roll of brown paper and the Sharpie to teach you with, right? And you can read what they're writing. If I did that, even if I was very good at the math, as which never will happen in my whole life.
But if they were doing it about like the game design of Puerto Rico or like something we know,
if I was going to teach you, if I was going to be a number featured in a board game file, computer file video. I'm not even smart enough for a computer file, which does exist. It's the same people making the channel. Like, I could not write legibly enough on the brown paper, even going slow, right, that it would be any good. So that's a thing, right? It's not a completely useless skill, even though it's now a mostly useless skill.
Yep. It's
And even if it's not used as a skill, it's very valuable as an art, right? especially if you're making some sort of comic books or something, right?
Yep.
Graphic novels.
But it is interesting. I'm just thinking about it. I don't really write anything now except notes and custom forms, customs forms, diagrams, nothing else.
Forms. Yep. I'm always really slow filling out forms because it's like, even if your handwriting sucks, you can do better just going slowly.
Yep.
No matter what. So yeah.
Especially the forms got the little blocks. You have to fit a letter in every individual block.
Yeah. If I'm at like the DMV, I'm like, right, trying to make sure I don't mess anything up. Get a driver's license spelled, Scott Robin or something.
The other aspect of this, and then we can wrap up, is signatures are generally written, at least in the West, in cursive.
Yep,
even among people
awful.
who don't write in cursive. They usually learn how to do their signature in some pseudo cursive. And Mike's signature is funny because it originally was my name just written very nicely, every letter in cursive. But as time went on, I was writing it faster and faster and faster, and I kind of go through the motions that would make the right letters, but very quickly, and it slowly transformed into a scribble. And at this point, it is just a scribble.
Yeah.
But what's funny,
I would just write an X at some points, right?
But yeah, especially like if I'm checking out and someone like wants the signature.
I have a version of my signature stored in the Adobe Fill and Sign because most of the time I'm filling out digital forms and I drag it onto there, right?
So I looked.
The one that's in there is awful, and I sort of felt like, there are people who will like help you develop your signature. It's like, maybe I should try that. Like, how much could that service cost?
Oh, see, I went the other way. I let mine get so bad that that squiggle is extremely consistent and extremely like it is my signature. You can tell right away that's Rim's signature.
Mine looks, but mine doesn't look good. Mine looks like a Wile E. Coyote that an anvil fell on. Right? It's not a good one. It's like, ugh.
Mine's got a little structure because it's like
I feel like make it more like artistically pleasing, right? Aesthetically.
See, my squiggle is almost pleasing because it's like da-da-da, and then there's like a big stylized sort of D, and then another da-da-da-da after it. But for an unrelated reason, I looked up all the scans of all my driver's licenses over the years. That fucking signature is just identical. For all this time, that scribble is 100% consistent. It is kind of shocking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think that was a fine show. Chase said he'd be at the thing at like 7, so we're going to head over there by about